Hi everyone. I hope you're comfortable and ready to drift into a story that takes you back many centuries. Before we start, I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? And what time is it where you are? It's always fascinating to imagine the same story reaching people in different corners of the world, at different hours, each with their own surroundings and atmosphere. Now, imagine waking up in a medieval city. The first light of dawn slowly stretches across narrow cobbled streets, bouncing off the rough timbered houses that lean ever so slightly toward one another, as if whispering secrets from one rooftop to the next. From the distant bell tower, the day's first tolls echo, marking the start of another day filled with labor, laughter, and perhaps a little mischief. The smell of wet stone, smoke from hearth fires, and the faint tang of livestock mixes in the cool morning air. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, and the clatter of wooden carts on uneven streets announces the arrival of early merchants. This city, bustling and alive, is home to Thomas, a young man of modest means, whose family has lived here for generations. Thomas is just stepping out of his small, somewhat cramped home, its walls lined with wooden shelves, jars of herbs, and the odd piece of hand-me-down pottery. He wraps a coarse woolen cloak around his shoulders, the fabric rough against his skin, yet providing the necessary warmth against the chilly morning. Outside, the streets are already stirring. A baker pounds the dough in rhythm with the crowing of a rooster, while a milkmaid carries buckets of fresh milk, balanced carefully on her shoulders. She greets a neighbor with a curt nod, and in her eyes, there is the weary determination of someone who has faced countless mornings like this. As Thomas moves through the winding alleys, the city reveals itself in layers. Children dart past him, laughing and dodging carts, their bare feet slapping against the stone. An old man sits by a fountain, muttering prayers under his breath, tossing small coins for the few birds that venture close. From an open window, the scent of boiling broth drifts lazily, mingling with the sharper aroma of horses tethered nearby. Thomas pauses for a moment, noticing the intricate carvings on a merchant's sign. A lion poised mid-leap, its mane curling as if caught in the wind. Each symbol tells a story, a silent testament to the trades and ambitions housed within these walls. Life in this medieval city is a delicate balance of survival, routine, and occasional wonder. The streets are narrow not by accident but as a practical measure, to protect against invaders and to funnel trade through the most advantageous paths. Homes are packed tightly together, creating shadows that stretch long in the early morning sun. Above, lines of laundry sway gently, a quiet testament to daily life. Thomas observes the patterns of the city, noting how the rhythm of the people seems synchronized with the bell tolls, the morning calls of merchants, and the movements of the town guards, who patrol silently yet alertly. One cannot speak of a medieval city without noticing the marketplaces, which are not merely centers of commerce but theaters of social life. Today, Thomas plans to wander toward the central square, where the scent of fresh bread, cured meats, and exotic spices from distant lands converges. He passes by the blacksmith, whose hammer rings against the anvil in a steady, hypnotic rhythm, sparks flying in brief, brilliant arcs. The sound resonates through the alleyways, announcing both skill and power. Nearby, the aroma of tanned leather mingles with that of herbs, creating a heady, almost overwhelming sensory tapestry. People exchange not only goods but news, gossip, and rumors. Thomas overhears a conversation about a traveling storyteller who arrived yesterday, promising tales of distant lands and forgotten kings. Children squeal with excitement at the thought, while adults exchange skeptical glances, accustomed to the exaggerations of wandering entertainers. Each word carries weight. In a city where letters are scarce and news slow to travel, Oral communication forms the backbone of knowledge, superstition, and intrigue. As Thomas steps into the square, the city reveals its full vibrancy. Merchants shout over one another, enticing passers-by with promises of quality goods, rare ingredients, or handcrafted trinkets. A juggler pirouettes skillfully, keeping 3 flaming torches aloft as a crowd gathers, clapping in admiration. The town crier, clad in a vivid blue coat, proclaims a royal decree, his voice carrying over the din. The city is alive, not in the modern sense of cars and engines, but in the organic, pulsating rhythm of human activity, smells, voices, and the ever-present tension between order and chaos. Thomas, amidst all this, feels both a part of the city and a small observer, noting its layers, its patterns, and its stories. The city, with its narrow alleys, crowded squares, and the constant interplay of danger and delight, will shape his life in ways subtle and profound. He is aware that the streets carry more than just people. They carry whispers of history, legends of past deeds, and hints of adventures yet to unfold. And as he moves deeper into the market, he wonders what stories today might add to the tapestry of his city life, what encounters might leave a mark, and which fleeting moments will, in time, be forgotten. There is a sense that life in this city is fragile yet resilient. Fires, diseases, sudden disputes, all these are ever-present threats, yet the people continue their routines with remarkable consistency. Thomas knows that to survive, one must pay attention, adapt quickly, and sometimes rely on luck. Yet, for every challenge, there is also beauty. The first light hitting a fountain, the laughter of children, the smell of fresh bread, the echo of a bell tower across the rooftops. Each moment carries a quiet magic that keeps the city vibrant and its people bound together, day after day, year after year. And so, as the morning unfolds and Thomas steps further into the bustling heart of his city, one cannot help but feel the pulse of life itself. Every alleyway, every square, every whispered story or shouted sale contributes to the living narrative of the medieval city, a narrative that he, in his small way, helps to continue. It is a world both dangerous and enchanting, full of routine, chance, and endless stories waiting to be discovered. As Thomas steps fully into the market square, the true heart of the city begins to reveal itself. The early morning bustle has grown louder, denser, almost overwhelming to an outsider. Yet Thomas moves through it with the ease of someone who knows every shortcut and shadowed alley. The air is thick with the mingling aromas of roasting meat, fresh bread, herbs, and the sharp tang of fish from the nearby river stalls. Each scent carries a story, a reminder of where the goods came from, who produced them, and what the day ahead might hold. Merchants shout, their voices rising and falling in practiced rhythm, each vying for the attention of passers-by. A spice seller displays vibrant powders, reds, yellows, and deep oranges that promise flavors from distant lands. Thomas notices the subtle gestures they use, beckoning with fingers, flashing coins, and leaning toward potential customers with the practiced precision of someone who knows the value of timing. Nearby, a fishmonger slaps a slippery catch onto a wooden counter, water dripping onto the cobblestones, while a small boy collects the scraps, giggling as he dodges the legs of unsuspecting pedestrians. The market is not just a place for trade. It is a place for observation, for learning the rhythm of the city. Thomas pauses to watch a merchant and a customer haggle over a bolt of fabric. Their words are sharp but courteous, filled with subtle shifts in tone that convey both respect and assertiveness. The crowd gathers slightly, drawn to the tension and the skillful use of persuasion. Thomas has learned over time that each transaction is as much about social maneuvering as it is about goods. A single gesture or carefully chosen word can tip the balance, revealing who holds influence in the bustling square. Amid the noise, Thomas notices the street performers who animate the space with humor, music, and minor acrobatics. A trio of musicians plays a lively tune on a fiddle, a drum, and a small flute, their melody echoing off the timbered houses. Nearby, a jester pirouettes, flipping a small wooden club into the air with practiced grace, drawing laughter from children and wary smiles from adults who secretly admire his skill. These performers are as essential to the city as the bakers and blacksmiths. They bring joy, distraction, and a sense of continuity to the busy, often harsh life of urban medieval existence. The city's social hierarchy is woven seamlessly into the market's activity. Thomas notices a group of guild members, identifiable by the embroidered insignia on their tunics, moving with authority, inspecting stalls, and occasionally exchanging brief nods that speak volumes. Their presence is both a reminder of the regulations that govern trade and a subtle threat to those who might bend or ignore the rules. Thomas keeps a respectful distance, understanding that the power dynamics in the market are invisible yet profoundly felt. As he wanders, Thomas's attention is caught by the interactions among the common folk. A group of women examines baskets of vegetables, their hands lingering over the produce as they discuss the quality of this year's harvest. Men trade news of distant towns, recounting rumors of bandit attacks or upcoming festivals. Children chase one another through the legs of the crowd, laughing, oblivious to the world's harsher realities. The city, through its marketplace, becomes a living tapestry of human interaction. Commerce intertwined with gossip, celebration, and survival. Thomas stops at a stall where a cobbler displays an array of worn but functional shoes. He observes the intricate stitching, the careful repairs, and the pride the craftsman takes in each piece. In this city, every trade requires skill, patience, and attention to detail. The cobbler's work, like that of the blacksmith, the baker, or the spice merchant, shapes not just the economy but the rhythm of daily life, creating a structure upon which the city depends. Nearby, a group of elders gathers in the shade of a timbered building, exchanging stories that drift through the air like invisible threads. They speak of past harvests, strange weather patterns, and inexplicable events, tales that Thomas has come to recognize as a mixture of fact, embellishment, and superstition. These stories are as much a part of city life as the physical structures, shaping perceptions, fears, and hopes. Children listen wide-eyed, absorbing lessons on morality, resilience, and the mysteries that surround their world. The marketplace is also a stage for conflict, subtle yet ever-present. Thomas witnesses a heated argument between two merchants over a disputed debt. Voices rise, gestures become sharp, but an elder steps between them, his calm authority diffusing tension. It is a reminder that the city, while vibrant and full of life, exists under constant negotiation between individuals, guilds, and unseen authorities. Each day brings minor disputes, resolved with a combination of tradition, skill, and sometimes sheer luck. As the morning stretches toward noon, Thomas notices the ebb and flow of the crowd. Some leave with goods tucked under arms or balanced on heads, while others arrive, bringing fresh wares or seeking the rarest of commodities. Travelers from distant regions add another layer, their clothing, speech, and goods hinting at lands Thomas may never see. Through these interactions, the city remains both familiar and expansive, a node in a wider network of commerce, communication, and human curiosity. In observing the market, Thomas reflects on the subtle rhythms of life here. The city thrives not merely on the exchange of goods, but on a complex web of trust, rivalry, performance, and negotiation. Each stall, Each transaction carries an unspoken understanding. Survival and prosperity depend on attention, adaptability, and the ability to read both people and circumstance. Even a small gesture, a nod, a smile, a well-timed complaint, can shift the balance of fortune in subtle yet significant ways. By the time Thomas begins to leave the market, the sun has climbed higher, casting warmer light across the cobblestones and illuminating details he had not noticed earlier. The way shadows fall against carved wooden doorways, the glint of metal in a merchant's display, the laughter of children echoing down narrow alleys. Each element, though ordinary in isolation, combines to form the living, breathing organism of the city. It is a place of commerce, yes, but also of story, observation, and human connection. An ecosystem where every individual, including Thomas, contributes to its pulse. Thomas steps away from the bustling market, turning down a narrower, quieter street that leads to the home he has known all his life. Unlike the chaos of the square, this alley carries a softer rhythm. The clatter of a cart over uneven stones, the occasional laugh of a neighbor greeting a friend, and the faint murmur of children playing with simple wooden toys. The walls of the houses, darkened by years of soot and rain, lean slightly inward, forming narrow shadows that stretch across the street like silent sentinels. The air carries a mix of scents: the lingering spices from the market, smoke from hearth fires, and the earthy aroma of rain-soaked cobblestones. Thomas's home is modest, a two-story timbered structure with a small garden tucked into a corner. The wooden door creaks as he pushes it open, revealing a space both familiar and comforting. Inside, the air is warmer, tinged with the smell of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling and the faint aroma of last night's stew. The room is dim, lit by a single window through which a strip of sunlight falls across the rough wooden floor. On the shelves, jars of preserved fruits, vegetables, and grains are lined up meticulously. Each container tells a story of careful preparation, seasonal labor, and the unending cycle of survival in a city where resources must be managed wisely. Thomas's family is gathered in the small common area. His mother, her hands weathered from years of labor, tends to a simmering pot, stirring slowly and humming a tune that seems older than the city itself. His younger sister, curious and energetic, chases a small wooden hoop across the floor, laughing as it clatters against the walls. His father, a sturdy man with calloused hands, sits on a bench near the fireplace, sharpening a knife with deliberate care, the metal ringing softly with each stroke. Their interactions are quiet but rich with unspoken understanding. Each action carries the rhythm of routine, yet underneath lies the subtle improvisation required to navigate the unpredictable challenges of city life. Meals in the city are simple but meaningful. Thomas joins his family at the table, where a loaf of coarse bread, some cheese, and a bowl of vegetable stew await. Each bite is a reminder of labor, the bread kneaded and baked by neighbors, the vegetables gathered from small plots tucked behind houses, the cheese crafted carefully by someone who knows the secrets of curdling and aging. Conversation flows gently, covering mundane matters, the state of the garden, repairs needed on the roof, the latest rumors circulating in the marketplace. But occasionally, it drifts into tales of distant towns, unexplained happenings, and the oddities of the past. Even within the small space of his home, Thomas is aware of the city beyond the walls. Through the window, he can see the movement of merchants delivering goods, hear the distant bell of the church signaling the hour, and notice the fleeting shadows of passers-by on the narrow streets. The city penetrates the home not just through sound and smell, but through stories and interactions. It is impossible to exist in isolation, even within the seemingly private sanctuary of family life. In these quiet moments, Thomas also reflects on the social structures that shape life. His father's guild connections, his mother's network of neighbors, and even the informal agreements with local merchants, all form an intricate web that guides daily survival. Skills, reputation, and trust are currency as valuable as coins. Knowing who to approach, when to speak, and how to negotiate is crucial. Thomas has learned that every visit to the market, every conversation, and every simple act of courtesy or defiance can ripple outward, influencing relationships and opportunities in subtle yet powerful ways. Stories are a constant presence in the household. His mother recounts tales she heard from her own parents, legends of city founders, tales of old fires, and mysterious figures who once walked these streets. Some stories are cautionary, warning of the dangers of wandering too far alone or trusting the wrong stranger. Others are filled with wonder, describing strange weather phenomena, unusual births, or inexplicable events that leave even the most skeptical listeners pondering. These stories are more than entertainment. They are a means of passing wisdom, teaching lessons, and connecting generations through a shared narrative. The children, including Thomas's sister, are particularly captivated by these tales. Their imaginations turn the small garden into enchanted forests, the fireplace into a portal to distant lands, and the shadows on the walls into mysterious creatures. Thomas often finds himself drawn into the stories as well, recognizing patterns and lessons that apply to the real challenges of life in the city. He notes how the market, the streets, and even the guilds mirror the adventures and misadventures found in these tales. Lessons of caution, bravery, cleverness, and resilience. Even the mundane tasks of daily life carry subtle rhythms and meaning. Chopping wood for the fire, fetching water from a nearby well, repairing worn clothing, or preparing a simple meal. All are acts of survival, but also of craftsmanship, care, and continuity. Each task requires attention, skill, and patience, and each contributes to the larger functioning of the household and the city. Thomas learns that mastery of these small acts, performed consistently, can lead to greater opportunities and protection in a world where chance and misfortune are constant companions. As the day progresses, visitors occasionally arrive, neighbors stopping by to exchange news, share food, or request assistance. Thomas observes these interactions carefully, learning the subtle cues that indicate trust, obligation, or hidden tension. The city is never far from the household. Its patterns, conflicts, and joys ripple inward, shaping every corner of domestic life. Even the walls seem to listen and absorb, holding the echoes of countless conversations, footsteps, and laughter. Through these intimate details, Thomas comes to understand the delicate balance between public and private life. The city outside is loud, chaotic, and full of opportunity and danger, while the home offers a controlled environment for rest, reflection, and preparation. Yet neither exists in isolation. The lessons learned in the streets, observation, caution, social navigation, inform actions at home, and the stability and knowledge gained within the household prepare one to face the city's challenges. The morning sun rises higher, spilling light into narrow alleys and illuminating the city's workshop district, where the hum of labor forms a rhythm as steady and vital as the city's heartbeat. Thomas makes his way toward the area, curious to observe the artisans and craftsmen who shape the objects, tools, and even the lives of those around them. Every step carries the echo of wooden clogs and the occasional shout of instruction or complaint, sounds that blend into a symphony of labor, creation, and community. The blacksmith's forge is the first place to catch his attention. Smoke curls from the chimney, carrying the sharp tang of burning coal. The rhythmic pounding of hammer against metal creates a staccato beat that resonates through the street. Sparks leap into the air, brief flashes of brilliance in the otherwise dim interior. Thomas watches as the blacksmith, a broad-shouldered man with a soot-stained face, bends and twists red-hot iron into tools, hinges, and occasionally, delicate decorative items for wealthier patrons. Every movement is precise, honed by years of repetition, and yet each piece carries subtle uniqueness, the mark of skill and personal pride. Across the way, a carpenter's workshop bursts with activity. Boards are planed, nails hammered, and the scent of freshly cut wood fills the air. Apprentices scurry between benches, fetching tools, measuring, and assisting with projects both grand and simple. Thomas notes the meticulous attention paid to each joint and carving, realizing that what might seem ordinary, like a sturdy chest or a plain door, requires knowledge, effort, and foresight. In these workshops, the city's rhythm takes tangible form, manifesting in objects that are both practical and beautiful, woven into the lives of every resident. Further down the street, the cobbler's bench is a hive of detail-oriented work. Shoes are stretched, stitched, and polished, each pair reflecting not only the needs of the wearer but also the cobbler's skill. Thomas notices subtle competitions, small rivalries between craftsmen who measure their reputations against one another. A misplaced stitch, a slightly uneven sole, or a minor flaw could be cause for gossip or derision, while a perfectly executed piece earns admiration, repeat customers, and sometimes envy. These silent contests drive innovation, precision, and pride, shaping not just individual livelihoods, but the standards of the entire city. Even the smaller trades have their rhythms and hierarchies. The apothecary's shop smells strongly of herbs, dried flowers, and mysterious powders. Thomas peeks inside to see jars labeled in carefully painted script, bottles containing tinctures, ointments, and remedies for ailments both common and unusual. The apothecary moves with a calm authority, weighing ingredients with exacting precision. Patrons enter with questions, complaints, and desperate hopes, and each transaction is both a science and a delicate negotiation of trust. Here, as elsewhere, the balance between skill, reputation, and opportunity is constant, and Thomas absorbs these lessons with quiet fascination. The guilds play an invisible yet pervasive role in these workshops. Membership grants protection, guidance, and legitimacy, but also imposes rules, taxes, and restrictions. Thomas watches as guild members inspect stalls, exchange nods, and offer advice that carries the weight of collective authority. Conflicts are often mediated subtly, through gestures, remarks, and social cues that may escape an untrained eye. For Thomas, observing these interactions is as instructive as hands-on labor itself, revealing the complex social mechanics that govern every aspect of city life. While the city thrives on trade and labor, competition is never far from the surface. Thomas notices a young apprentice quarreling with a journeyman over a minor error in carving. Voices rise, but a master intervenes, restoring order with measured authority. Such incidents are commonplace. They teach patience, respect, and the necessity of learning from mistakes. The streets and workshops are arenas where skill, temperament, and cunning intertwine, and every resident participates, whether directly or indirectly, in this ongoing performance of city life. Beyond the obvious work, the city is also a stage for chance encounters and unexpected lessons. Thomas meets a wandering mason who demonstrates a clever technique for creating more durable bricks, a trick he learned in a distant town. The encounter sparks curiosity and admiration, and Thomas wonders how many skills, ideas, and stories travel unseen through the city, carried by itinerant workers and travelers. Knowledge, like goods, moves through the streets, enriching lives in subtle ways. As Thomas continues, he observes how the environment itself shapes labor. Narrow alleys channel sound and movement, forcing craftsmen to adapt their techniques. Small squares provide space for communal projects or festivals, while upper floors and attics offer workshops insulated from the hustle of the street below. Even the weather has its role. Rain drives craftsmen indoors, creating cramped, focused workspaces, while dry, sunny days encourage outdoor construction and trade. The city's physical and social landscapes are inseparable, each influencing the other in an intricate, ongoing dance. Throughout the day, Thomas moves from one workshop to another, absorbing techniques, noticing patterns, and watching the subtle exchanges that sustain both craft and community. The city is alive with creation, each act of labor a thread in the broader tapestry of urban existence. It is a place where skill meets necessity, where pride meets survival, and where even the smallest contribution, whether a neatly stitched shoe, a well-shaped plank, or a finely wrought hinge, cements one's place in the living story of the city. By late afternoon, Thomas pauses near the central square, taking a moment to reflect. The streets are still active, though the rhythm has shifted. Some workshops close early, sending apprentices home, while others continue under lamplight, focused and quiet. The market begins to wind down, merchants packing up goods, and children tire from play. Yet the pulse of the city never ceases entirely. Life continues in alleys, houses, and gardens, each moment feeding into the next, each action intertwined with countless others in a network of cause and effect that sustains the city's rhythm. Thomas leaves the workshop district with a sense of quiet awe. He has seen not just work, but a living culture, a society where every skill, story, and interaction matters. The city, vibrant and intricate, thrives because of these efforts, both visible and hidden. And as he walks home through the streets, Thomas carries with him the understanding that life in this medieval city is not merely survival. It is a delicate, intricate dance, a balance of craft, community, and chance that will continue long after the sun dips below the rooftops. As the evening light softens, Thomas finds himself drawn toward the city's cathedral, its spire reaching toward the sky like a sentinel over the bustling streets. Religion is woven deeply into the fabric of city life, guiding the rhythms of work, trade, and celebration. From a distance, he can hear the faint tolling of bells, announcing the evening prayer, each note vibrating through the air and resonating off the stone and timbered houses. The sound carries a sense of continuity, of a shared heartbeat that unites residents in both faith and routine. The cathedral itself is a place of wonder and ritual. Its heavy wooden doors creak as Thomas enters, stepping into the cool, shadowed interior. Sunlight filters through stained glass, painting the floor with brilliant patterns of red, blue, and gold. The air smells faintly of incense, mingling with the subtle mustiness of old stone and wood. Here, amidst flickering candlelight and the soft murmur of prayer, time seems to slow, and Thomas is struck by the quiet reverence that pervades the space. Worship is not merely a duty. It is a shared rhythm that shapes the city's daily life. In this sacred place, Thomas encounters townsfolk from all walks of life. Wealthy merchants kneel alongside laborers, mothers with children in tow, and the occasional wandering traveler. Each person carries their own burdens, hopes, and fears. Yet here they share a collective focus, bowing heads and folding hands in ritual. Thomas watches quietly, absorbing the gestures, expressions, and whispered prayers that reveal more about the city than any marketplace or workshop could. Faith binds the community, offering guidance, solace, and sometimes fear, as stories of divine wrath and miraculous interventions circulate freely. Even outside the cathedral's walls, religious influence is everywhere. Crosses mark doorways, holy symbols hang in shops, and small shrines are tucked into street corners. Thomas notices the subtle ways faith shapes behavior: respect for the elderly, a cautious eye toward strangers, and a willingness to aid those in need. Yet, alongside devotion, there exists superstition. Stories of demons, spirits, and protective charms circulate constantly, woven into daily life and often blending seamlessly with oral histories and urban legends. Festivals and holy days transform the city in ways both practical and extraordinary. When a religious holiday approaches, streets fill with colorful banners, processions wind through narrow alleys, and musicians and performers join in to celebrate. Markets expand to accommodate pilgrims and visitors, bringing rare goods, exotic foods, and a heightened sense of excitement. Thomas has learned that these events are as much about social cohesion and entertainment as they are about worship. They provide opportunities to witness human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity, all under the umbrella of spiritual observance. Stories of saints and local miracles permeate conversation. Thomas listens as elders recount tales of a pious woman who once healed the sick through prayer, or a wandering monk who predicted a storm that would save the harvest. Such stories are not always verified, yet their power lies in the way they shape belief, behavior, and expectation. Children are particularly captivated, their imaginations transforming these narratives into vivid images of heroism, mystery, and divine influence. Thomas sometimes wonders how much of these tales are history, how much embellishment, and how much are the collective dreams of the city itself. The city's clergy wields subtle influence over commerce, labor, and justice. Guilds often consult with church representatives, while moral guidance affects the conduct of merchants, artisans, and common folk alike. Thomas observes that even disputes over property, debts, or reputation are frequently framed in terms of morality and divine judgment. In this sense, the church is both spiritual sanctuary and a guiding hand in the practical affairs of daily life, its presence felt in every interaction, every decision, and every cautious step through the streets. Thomas himself participates in these rituals with quiet respect, aware that faith offers more than comfort. It provides structure, predictability, and a framework for interpreting the unpredictable world around him. He notices how devotion coexists with commerce and labor, how prayer and work are intertwined, and how the rhythm of the city is subtly aligned with religious observance. Even the timing of meals, the ringing of bells, and the schedule of apprenticeships seem shaped by this pervasive influence. Legends also arise from this intersection of faith and daily life. Thomas recalls tales of miraculous escapes from fires, unexplained recoveries from illness, and strange occurrences attributed to divine intervention. Some claim that spirits wander the streets at night, particularly near sacred sites, and parents caution children against venturing too far after dark. Others speak of enchanted relics hidden within the city, powerful objects capable of influencing fortune, wealth, or protection. While skepticism exists, these stories are part of the city's heartbeat, weaving wonder, caution, and imagination into everyday existence. The night deepens, and Thomas lingers in the cathedral's shadowed cloisters, watching the flicker of torchlight against the walls. The quiet chatter of the evening bell echoes through the streets, accompanied by the distant clatter of closing workshops and the softer footsteps of those returning home. The interplay of faith, labor, and daily life creates a subtle, almost musical rhythm that Thomas has come to recognize as the city's true pulse. Here, amidst devotion and story, he sees the intricate web connecting every resident, past, present, and future, and begins to understand how faith, myth, and practice shape not only individuals but the city as a whole. Even as Thomas departs, stepping back into the narrower alleys, he carries with him the weight and wonder of the city's spiritual life. He notices how every door, every sign, every whispered prayer contributes to the living narrative. Faith exists not as a distant abstraction, but as a tangible, breathing element of daily existence, influencing decisions, shaping behavior, and coloring even the smallest moments. The cathedral, the streets, and the people together form a seamless tapestry of belief, tradition, and shared human experience, anchoring Thomas and the city itself in a continuum that stretches across generations. As darkness begins to settle over the city, Thomas treads carefully through the twisting streets, aware that the rhythm of life changes once the sun disappears behind the rooftops. Shadows stretch long and deep, merging with the dim glow of torchlight that flickers against the walls. The city by day is full of laughter, trade, and predictable routines, but at night, it becomes a place of uncertainty, whispered warnings, and hidden dangers. Every alley could conceal mischief or menace, and every corner might harbor a story yet untold. The city gates are closed, though not everyone abides strictly by the rules. Travelers and laborers returning late must pass under the watchful eyes of guards, who patrol the streets in pairs. Their lanterns cast moving pools of light, illuminating uneven cobbles and revealing the occasional discarded bundle or stray animal. Thomas notes the importance of timing. Being too late risks confrontation with the watch, while arriving too early could mean missing crucial exchanges or messages left in the marketplace. Life here is a constant negotiation with time and circumstance. Even in familiar streets, the night brings strange sounds. The soft creak of timber settling, distant howls from dogs or wolves, and the muted conversations of late-night wanderers. Some stories claim that spirits roam the alleys after dark, guardians or tricksters depending on which version you hear. Thomas has heard tales of shadowy figures who appear at windows, vanish without a trace, or leave cryptic marks on doors. While many dismiss these as superstition, the collective belief lends them a weight that shapes behavior. People lock doors, leave small offerings, and whisper prayers to ensure safety. As he passes by the darker corners of the city, Thomas notices the subtle economy of secrecy. Late-night vendors move quietly, offering goods that may be forbidden, rare, or illicit. Their transactions are brief, often conducted in low voices, with a glance toward the streets for guards or nosy neighbors. Thomas observes, learning which faces are familiar, which gestures signify trust, and how information flows even when silence is mandatory. It is a side of the city rarely visible in daylight, where survival often depends on discretion, cunning, and keen observation. Vagrants and beggars, too, shape the nocturnal life. Thomas sees them huddled near doorways or fountains, sharing small fires and whispered stories. These marginalized figures possess knowledge of hidden paths, secret meeting places, and the rhythms of the city that others overlook. Their lives are precarious, yet they adapt with creativity and resilience, exploiting shadows and chance encounters to navigate danger. Thomas recognizes that the city's pulse at night is broader than the marketplace or workshop. It includes those who survive on wit, agility, and instinct. Occasionally, Thomas glimpses figures moving with purpose, cloaked and hooded, their intentions obscured. Some are messengers carrying letters or coins for distant patrons. Others may be thieves, skillful in the art of pickpocketing or subtle burglary, testing the vigilance of guards and citizens alike. Even small children, emboldened by darkness, might explore alleys and hidden corners, their laughter ringing out briefly before they scurry home. Each of these movements contributes to the unseen tapestry of city life, a network of risk, opportunity, and human ingenuity. As he continues through the streets, Thomas recalls local legends told by elders. There are whispers of spirits guarding ancient wells, of apparitions warning of fire or theft, and of mysterious travelers who appear only under a full moon. These stories, though rarely verified, serve as moral and practical guidance. They teach caution, respect for tradition, and the understanding that the city itself is alive with memory and consequence. Even the most skeptical resident often observes these tales in subtle ways, avoiding certain routes or performing small rituals to appease the unknown. In one alley, Thomas notices a small gathering around a flickering lantern. A storyteller, cloaked and mysterious, recounts tales of past city fires, miraculous escapes, and encounters with wandering knights or strange creatures. Children and adults alike are drawn in, eyes wide with curiosity, minds racing with imagined sights and sounds. Thomas listens, fascinated by how narrative shapes perception, creating shared understanding and a collective memory that spans generations. These stories, like the bricks and timber of the city itself, form a structure upon which culture and community are built. Nighttime work also continues, albeit quietly. The blacksmith may repair critical tools under candlelight, the apothecary mixes rare remedies, and some merchants prepare shipments for early morning markets. These nocturnal efforts reveal a city that never truly sleeps, where labor, commerce, and necessity blend seamlessly with superstition, entertainment, and survival. Thomas observes, learning the rhythms of discretion and persistence, and noting how resilience and skill often determine success as much as daylight labor does. The city at night carries a fragile beauty, too. Lanterns reflect in puddles left by recent rain, cobblestones glisten with dew, and the occasional moonbeam illuminates carved doorways or garden walls. The air is quieter, yet charged with expectation. The sense that unseen stories unfold constantly, that every corner might hold danger, opportunity, or revelation. Thomas walks slowly, aware that he is both observer and participant, absorbing lessons that will guide him in the days to come. Even the night itself seems to teach caution and patience. A sudden scurry of rats, a distant scream, or the echo of hurried footsteps reminds him that life here is unpredictable. Yet within this uncertainty, Thomas also senses patterns. The routes the guards patrol, the timing of lantern lighting, the subtle signs that indicate safety or risk. Mastery of these patterns is as valuable as any coin or crafted item, and Thomas understands that awareness and observation are forms of currency in their own right. By the time Thomas reaches his home again, the city has settled into a softer rhythm. Windows glow faintly with candlelight, smoke drifts gently from chimneys, and the distant bell tolls a final hour. The lessons of the night, the hidden commerce, the shadowed paths, the stories and superstitions linger in his mind. The city is alive not only in sunlight and labor, but in mystery, rumor, and subtle interaction. Each alley, each door, each whispered conversation contributes to a living narrative that extends beyond the ordinary, shaping the experiences of all who inhabit this medieval world. As the first pale light of dawn brushes against the city rooftops, Thomas rises once again, feeling the subtle shift in the air that comes with changing seasons. Life in the medieval city is profoundly influenced by nature, and Thomas has learned to read its signs with careful attention. The rhythm of work, celebration, and survival shifts as the months pass, and each season brings both opportunity and challenge. Today, the streets carry the faint scent of damp earth and blooming herbs, signaling the arrival of spring and the renewal it promises. Springtime transforms the city in ways both practical and enchanting. Garden plots, small and carefully tended, emerge from dormancy, their young shoots reaching for sunlight. Merchants bring fresh produce, vibrant and fragrant, filling stalls with radishes, early greens, and tender herbs. Thomas walks past baskets of eggs, bottles of fresh milk, and bundles of fragrant flowers. The market, already bustling, seems lighter in color and tone, infused with the energy of growth and anticipation. Even the chatter carries a slightly higher pitch, as neighbors discuss planting plans, the promise of festivals, and rumors from nearby towns. The festivals mark both celebration and necessity, intertwined with agricultural cycles. Spring harvest fairs, planting blessings, and local saints' days create a rhythm that structures the year. Streets are adorned with banners, garlands, and flowers woven into garlands and ribbons. Thomas notices the subtle hierarchy in these preparations. Guilds take responsibility for certain decorations, wealthy merchants sponsor events, and children are enlisted to carry lanterns or perform small tasks. Participation is both civic duty and social strategy, an opportunity to observe, network, and solidify one's place in the community. Craftsmanship adapts to the seasons as well. Blacksmiths repair tools in anticipation of planting or construction. Cobblers prepare sturdier footwear to endure spring rains, and bakers adjust recipes for the influx of new grains and dairy products. Thomas walks through the workshops, observing apprentices learning seasonal techniques, master craftsmen guiding hands with patience, and subtle competitions for efficiency and precision. The city seems alive with purpose, each individual contributing to a larger, interwoven effort to survive and thrive through the year's changes. Alongside labor, the festivals and seasonal rituals carry myth and legend. Thomas hears stories of spirits who bless or curse crops depending on the care and respect shown to the earth. Elders recount tales of miraculous springs, mysterious animals, and weather patterns that predict fortunes or disasters. These narratives blend seamlessly with practical knowledge: when to plant, when to harvest, and how to interpret the subtle signs of the sky, the soil, and the river. For Thomas, these stories are both entertainment and education, weaving together imagination, observation, and social instruction. Children play with renewed energy, mimicking the adults in miniaturized versions of city life. They reenact market transactions, perform mock trades, and practice small skills under watchful eyes. Thomas notes how these games reinforce social norms, teach observation, and cultivate dexterity and cunning. The line between play and learning is blurred, each small interaction a rehearsal for the responsibilities and challenges that lie ahead in the city's intricate ecosystem. The city's rhythms are also shaped by weather and the natural environment. Sudden spring rains transform streets into glistening rivers of cobblestone, forcing merchants to improvise and residents to adapt. Muddy paths slow carts, while puddles offer reflections of the timbered houses and passing figures. Thomas navigates these conditions with care, observing how others adjust, repairing leaks, protecting goods, and maintaining the delicate balance of commerce and movement. Survival, he understands, is never just about skill. It is about adaptability, timing, and keen awareness of one's surroundings. Even the river, a vital artery for trade and daily life, shows seasonal transformation. Fishermen cast nets earlier in the day, noting the migration of fish and the changing flow of water. Thomas watches as they haul in catches, sorting the bounty with practiced precision, and considers how closely intertwined the city is with the natural world. Goods from upstream, stories of distant towns, and even the arrival of strangers are all carried by the river, creating a living link between city and surrounding lands. During these seasonal shifts, Thomas also observes the subtle social negotiations that shape life. Guilds meet to discuss shared resources, disputes over trade routes are mediated, and apprentices vie for recognition from masters. Even festivals are arenas for social maneuvering, where wealth, reputation, and influence are displayed through contributions, attire, or performance. Every interaction is layered, every gesture meaningful, and Thomas learns to read both overt action and subtle signals with growing acuity. As evening approaches, the city transforms once more. Lanterns are lit along streets and bridges, casting gentle glows on stone and timber. Music drifts from the squares, where temporary stages host performances tied to the season's celebrations. Thomas joins in small gatherings, listening to tales of miraculous growth, daring merchants, and legendary figures who shaped the city's past. These stories, blending fact and imagination, teach lessons, inspire caution, and spark wonder, reminding Thomas that the city's narrative is as vital as its physical structures. The day concludes with a sense of rhythm and continuity. The work, the festivals, the stories, and the interactions form a seamless whole, a cycle that repeats with variation throughout the year. Thomas reflects on how life in this medieval city is never static. It flows, adapts, and evolves, shaped by labor, faith, weather, and human ingenuity. Each season brings fresh challenges and opportunities, weaving new stories into the fabric of the city, ensuring that every day, though similar in structure, is rich with potential discovery and experience. By the time Thomas returns home, the scent of evening fires and freshly baked bread greets him. The city, illuminated by torchlight and the fading glow of the sky, seems simultaneously vast and intimate. Through observation, participation, and careful attention, Thomas has begun to understand the subtle forces that sustain the city. Its labor, its stories, its faith, and the ever-present influence of the natural world. Life here is intricate, unpredictable, and deeply interconnected. A complex dance of survival, tradition, and human ingenuity. One morning, Thomas awakens with a sense of restless curiosity. Rumors have reached the city about a traveling fair arriving from a neighboring town, promising exotic goods, unusual performers, and contests that draw both artisans and spectators. The fair, a rare event, stirs excitement throughout the city. For Thomas, it is an opportunity not just to witness spectacle, but to glimpse the wider world beyond familiar streets, workshops, and markets. As he makes his way toward the city gates, Thomas notices the air is charged with anticipation. Children run ahead, dragging wooden toys to mimic imagined adventures, while merchants check their stock and eager neighbors discuss which performances they must see first. The cobblestones, worn smooth by countless feet, echo with hurried steps, and the distant sound of horns, drums, and voices carries the promise of novelty. Even the city guards seem distracted, glancing toward the fairgrounds with mild curiosity. The fair is a kaleidoscope of color, sound, and motion. Tents of deep reds and blues sway in the breeze, adorned with painted banners depicting distant lands, mythical beasts, and abstract patterns meant to entice and intrigue. Merchants from afar display spices, textiles, and trinkets that carry unfamiliar scents and shapes. Thomas moves cautiously, absorbing every detail. The subtle way a merchant attracts attention, the intricate skill displayed in crafting small charms, and the fleeting expressions of awe and desire on the faces of visitors. Amidst the crowd, performers captivate onlookers with feats of dexterity, strength, and illusion. Acrobats twist and flip, balancing on precarious platforms, while fire eaters manipulate flames with practiced grace. Jugglers toss objects with astonishing precision, and musicians create melodies that linger in the air, drawing the attention of even the most distracted passerby. Thomas watches closely, understanding that these displays are more than entertainment. They are demonstrations of skill, practice, and social performance. Reputation here, as in the workshops and guilds, is a currency of its own. Thomas is particularly drawn to a contest of craftsmanship. Artisans from nearby towns compete, demonstrating expertise in metalwork, carpentry, and textiles. Each participant brings a unique style, technique, or story, and the crowd reacts with admiration, skepticism, or laughter. Thomas notices subtle rivalries, polite gestures masking competition, and moments of genuine camaraderie. Observing these interactions, he begins to understand the delicate balance of pride, skill, and strategy that governs the social life of craftsmen. Even the smallest items carry stories. A wooden comb, carved with unusual patterns, might reflect a master's secret technique. A brightly dyed textile tells of distant trade routes, plant sources, and dyeing methods unknown to local dyers. Thomas marvels at the layers of knowledge embedded in each artifact, realizing that the city's material culture is not static. It absorbs innovation, travel, and imagination. Objects are not merely tools or commodities. They are vessels of culture, skill, and memory. The fair also brings news from beyond the city walls. Travelers share tales of distant towns, strange weather, or political changes that ripple through the region. Thomas listens intently, learning about rival cities, distant guilds, and stories of legendary figures who shaped nearby lands. These narratives blend seamlessly with urban legend, and he recognizes that much of what circulates here is a combination of fact, exaggeration, and imagination. Yet even the unverified stories carry lessons, warnings, and inspiration for those attuned to the rhythms of human behavior. Food stalls and temporary kitchens offer tastes and aromas that are rare in the city. Spiced meats, sweet pastries, and unfamiliar fruits invite curiosity and experimentation. Thomas observes how food not only sustains but also creates moments of interaction. Neighbors exchange bites, share opinions, and debate which delicacies are worth future effort or trade. These exchanges, small and seemingly mundane, reinforce social bonds, provide insight into taste and resource management, and highlight the interplay between novelty and tradition. Even as the day progresses, Thomas notices subtler dynamics. Young apprentices watch master craftsmen, learning techniques and absorbing strategies for social interaction. Merchants assess potential partners or rivals, weighing trust and opportunity in every conversation. Performers gauge audience reactions, adjusting timing, gesture, or flourish to maximize impact. Life at the fair is an extension of city rhythms, amplified and compressed into a single, intense, and spectacular day. In quieter moments, Thomas steps aside to observe the outskirts of the fair, where tents are less crowded and conversations are softer. Here, he encounters wandering scholars, storytellers, and itinerant mystics, each carrying objects, manuscripts, or tales imbued with curiosity and secrecy. Some offer insights into medicinal remedies, local history, or practical craft techniques. Others hint at mysteries, portents, or hidden treasures in surrounding lands. Thomas senses that knowledge and opportunity are intertwined, often arriving from unexpected sources, and that curiosity itself is a form of currency in understanding the world. As dusk approaches, the fair begins to wind down. Performers retreat into tents, merchants tally coins and pack goods, and the crowd slowly disperses. Yet the impact of the day lingers, echoing in conversation, observation, and imagination. Thomas returns to the city with a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of life, how skill, curiosity, and human interaction shape not only survival, but culture, identity, and opportunity. The city, though familiar, now feels larger, layered with unseen threads linking residents to distant lands, unknown practices, and stories yet to unfold. Back in the familiar streets, the torchlight flickers across the walls, and Thomas reflects on the lessons of the day. He has witnessed skill, strategy, and ingenuity, realized the power of stories and rumors, and observed how human ingenuity shapes culture in both visible and hidden ways. The fair has illuminated the city's place in a wider world, revealing the subtle currents of trade, reputation, and narrative that flow just beneath everyday life. Thomas carries this knowledge, understanding that every step, every observation, and every choice is part of a larger story that connects past, present, and future. As days pass, Thomas begins to notice that not all life in the city is as orderly or harmonious as it appears in daylight. Whispers of mischief and crime circulate among merchants, apprentices, and passers-by, hinting at hidden dangers that exist alongside daily routines. Thomas, curious and cautious, begins to pay attention to subtle signs. A shadow lingering too long, an object misplaced, or a hurried conversation silenced abruptly as he approaches. The city's rhythm has a darker undertone, one that only reveals itself to those willing to observe closely. The first encounter comes one evening near the market square. Thomas notices a figure slipping behind a stall with unusual care, returning moments later with a pouch noticeably heavier than before. The merchant appears oblivious, chatting with a customer, yet Thomas recognizes the tension in the body language, a silent negotiation of risk and opportunity. It is a reminder that the city is a layered place. What is seen by the majority may mask countless unseen actions, all part of the same ecosystem of survival, skill, and ambition. As he moves through narrow alleys, Thomas observes other signs of the hidden economy. A small, hastily marked door leads to an interior where coins change hands in whispers. Goods are exchanged surreptitiously, and information travels faster than official channels. The air is tense with secrecy, and Thomas realizes that trust and reputation are even more critical in these shadowed spaces than in the sunlight of the marketplace. A single misstep, misjudged glance, overheard phrase, or incorrect identification could have consequences far beyond the immediate transaction. Thomas also learns of the networks that facilitate this hidden life. Guild members who operate quietly to protect interests, neighbors who look away in silent complicity, and itinerants who carry messages, goods, and rumors between districts. Even seemingly minor players, the street urchin, the night watchman, or a wandering merchant, can influence outcomes in ways not immediately visible. Observing these interactions, Thomas begins to understand the delicate balance of oversight, trust, and opportunism that maintains order while allowing mischief to flourish in subtle ways. Among the tales he hears, there are stories of thieves' guilds operating in the city's underbelly. Their reputation is both feared and respected. Legends speak of clever strategies, unseen routes, and near-magical ability to evade detection. Thomas watches as suspicious figures navigate the city with uncanny ease, slipping past guards or blending into crowds. Even when a theft is discovered, the trail often leads nowhere, leaving behind only speculation and whispered warnings. These stories are told repeatedly, growing in drama and detail, shaping the perception of risk and skill among residents young and old. Thomas is particularly struck by the moral ambiguity he encounters. Some thefts are committed out of necessity, others from greed, and a few from sheer audacity or challenge. Occasionally, a crime serves as a form of social commentary, targeting corrupt merchants or abusive officials, blurring the line between wrongdoing and perceived justice. Observing these dynamics, Thomas begins to understand that survival in the city is rarely black and white. It is a complex interplay of resourcefulness, ethics, and circumstance. Even within his own neighborhood, Thomas notices signs of covert maneuvering. Windows left slightly ajar, crates moved at odd hours, and hushed conversations hint at alliances, disputes, and strategic planning. Small conflicts over territory, customers, or reputation are resolved quietly, often without the intervention of the watch. The social landscape is nuanced, with unwritten rules guiding behavior and maintaining a fragile equilibrium. Thomas becomes increasingly aware that observation, Timing and subtlety are as valuable as strength or skill in navigating the city safely. In one particularly tense encounter, Thomas observes a group of masked figures exchanging documents and coins in a deserted alley. Their movements are precise, almost choreographed, and their vigilance suggests that even within this secretive network, hierarchy and trust are rigorously enforced. The sight is both fascinating and unsettling, revealing a side of city life that exists entirely parallel to the visible world, yet profoundly intertwined with commerce, reputation, and survival. These experiences also introduce Thomas to the role of rumor and information as a currency. A single whispered warning can prevent theft, avert conflict, or expose a hidden opportunity. Conversely, misinformation spreads quickly, creating false alarms or unintended consequences. Thomas notes the care with which information is handled, the skill required to discern truth from speculation, and the subtle ways knowledge confers power, influence, and safety in a world that balances between order and chaos. Even ordinary streets, when observed closely, reveal hidden currents of danger and strategy. Thomas watches as a young pickpocket maneuvers through the crowd, timing movements to avoid both the watch and vigilant merchants. A street performer distracts onlookers, providing cover for subtle thefts. And yet, in this dance of skill and cunning, Thomas senses a code, a set of unspoken ethics, rules, and boundaries that govern behavior within the shadows of the city. The lessons here are intricate. Understanding, respect, and careful attention to both seen and unseen forces are critical to thriving in this layered environment. By the time night fully falls, Thomas reflects on what he has witnessed. The city's hidden life is as vital, complex, and fascinating as the visible one. Crime, secrecy, and cunning coexist with labor, faith, and celebration, forming an invisible network that sustains the social and economic ecosystem. Observing these dynamics, Thomas begins to understand that the city is not merely a collection of buildings and streets. It is a living, breathing entity, shaped as much by its shadows and secrets as by its light and openness. Returning home through the dimly lit alleys, Thomas carries this knowledge with him, aware that the medieval city is a place where skill, observation, and understanding of subtle social currents can determine one's fate. Each encounter, each whispered story, each hidden action contributes to the city's narrative, teaching lessons about caution, ingenuity, and the delicate balance between risk and reward. Life here, he realizes, is as much about perception and adaptation as it is about labor and ritual, a continuous negotiation with the unseen forces that shape every moment. Thomas awakens one crisp morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The city, familiar in its streets and routines, suddenly feels alive with possibility. Today, he decides to venture farther than usual, exploring corners that are rarely visited and listening to the subtle rhythms that hint at stories yet untold. The morning air is brisk, carrying scents of fresh bread, damp earth, and distant forests, and Thomas feels the city pulse around him as though it anticipates his curiosity. As he walks through a quieter district, he encounters a peculiar figure, an elderly man with a long cloak, carrying a small chest and humming a tune that seems ancient, almost forgotten. The man notices Thomas's gaze and offers a subtle nod, as if recognizing an unspoken curiosity. Intrigued, Thomas follows at a respectful distance, watching as the man navigates narrow passageways and hidden courtyards that Thomas had never noticed. It becomes clear that the city holds secrets not marked on any map. Hidden gardens, forgotten wells, and doorways tucked behind timbered facades. The old man stops at a small, unassuming doorway and opens the chest with care. Inside, Thomas glimpses a collection of maps, old manuscripts, and objects that glint faintly in the morning light. Each item seems to carry a story, a fragment of history or a clue to something larger. The man's hands move deftly, arranging and inspecting each piece, and Thomas realizes that this is a keeper of knowledge, a custodian of the city's forgotten tales and hidden truths. Observing quietly, Thomas begins to understand that some aspects of the city's life are preserved not in the streets or markets, but in the memory and vigilance of its residents. Curiosity propels Thomas to approach cautiously. The old man does not seem surprised, but rather expects the intrusion. "You see much, yet understand little," he murmurs, voice deep and resonant. The city speaks in many tongues, some loud, some silent. Watch closely, listen carefully, and the stories will reveal themselves. Thomas nods, absorbing the weight of the advice. He begins to see that life here is not merely a sequence of visible actions, but an intricate interplay of observation, understanding, and timing. The day unfolds as Thomas follows subtle hints scattered throughout the city. A carved mark on a doorframe leads him to a hidden courtyard, where a fountain, overgrown with moss, reflects the sky in fragmented shards. He notes symbols etched into the stones, remnants of previous generations, and begins to understand how memory, belief, and art intersect to create spaces of quiet significance. These discoveries are not grand or spectacular, yet they carry a richness of detail that demands attention, patience, and respect. Later, Thomas encounters a group of artisans in a secluded workshop, practicing a craft he had only seen in public displays. They work silently, their hands moving with precision, creating intricate designs in metal, wood, and cloth. Unlike the contests at the fair, this labor is private, deliberate, and deeply personal. Thomas observes how skill, tradition, and personal expression converge, each movement informed by knowledge passed down through generations. Even the smallest error is noted and corrected, teaching lessons of patience, attention, and discipline. As afternoon approaches, Thomas notices the subtle shift in the city's energy. Merchants begin closing stalls, apprentices return from errands, and the glow of late sun casts long shadows across streets and courtyards. He observes interactions that reveal hierarchy and subtle influence. A nod exchanged between a master and apprentice, a whispered instruction from a guild member, a subtle hand gesture that communicates caution or approval. These small cues are part of the city's social language, and Thomas learns that understanding them is essential for navigating life here safely and effectively. Intrigued by a faint melody, Thomas follows the sound to a small square where a musician plays a lute with extraordinary skill. The music draws a crowd, yet Thomas notices the subtleties. A quick glance exchanged between observers, a discreet hand passing a coin, and the silent communication of approval or critique. In these moments, the city's culture, its appreciation of skill, beauty, and innovation, is revealed not in grand announcements, but in quiet, communal recognition. Thomas begins to see how culture, commerce, and social interaction are intertwined in a delicate balance that sustains the city's identity. As evening descends, Thomas reflects on the day's discoveries. Hidden spaces, skilled artisans, subtle social cues, and the guardians of knowledge all reveal layers of the city that coexist with the more visible life of markets, churches, and festivals. He begins to understand that the city's essence is both tangible and intangible, shaped by labor, observation, skill, story, and memory. Every alley, courtyard, and workshop holds a lesson, a warning, or an insight, and Thomas feels increasingly attuned to the rhythms and secrets of this medieval world. Night falls and the city transforms once more. Torchlight flickers along walls, alleys take on a mysterious depth, and shadows conceal as much as they reveal. Thomas, carrying the weight of new knowledge and curiosity, moves through familiar streets with heightened awareness. Every door, window, and figure becomes a potential story, a hidden lesson, or a subtle warning. The city is no longer just a backdrop. It is an active participant in life, full of whispers, histories, and unseen currents that Thomas is beginning to navigate. By the time he reaches his home, Thomas feels a profound sense of connection to the city. It is alive, layered, and complex, shaped by craft, faith, commerce, secrecy, and tradition. Each discovery, observation, and interaction adds depth to his understanding, revealing a city that is both familiar and infinitely mysterious. He knows that tomorrow will bring new lessons, new encounters, and new stories, and he welcomes them with a mix of anticipation and reverent caution. Life in this medieval city, he realizes, is a continuous journey of observation, adaptation, and understanding. One that blends the ordinary with the extraordinary, the seen with the hidden, and the past with the present. One evening, as Thomas wanders through the quieter streets near the outskirts of the city, he begins to notice subtle changes in the atmosphere. The air feels heavier, tinged with the scent of damp earth and faint smoke from distant chimneys. A low mist begins to creep along the cobblestones, curling around doorways and lamp posts. Shadows stretch and twist in unusual ways, and even familiar buildings appear transformed under the soft gray light. Thomas senses that the city holds more than just its everyday routines. It conceals layers of mystery and legend, waiting to reveal themselves to those who are observant and brave enough to notice. He recalls tales told by elders about spirits and strange creatures that wander the streets at night, often invisible to the casual observer. Some are said to be guardians of forgotten corners, while others are tricksters who delight in leading travelers astray. Thomas feels a thrill of curiosity mixed with caution. He walks slowly, noting every unusual sound. A creak in the timber, a rustle of leaves, the distant echo of footsteps that do not match any passerby. The city seems alive in a way he had never noticed before, filled with hidden currents and unseen watchers. As he passes by an old well tucked into a narrow courtyard, Thomas notices faint markings etched into the stone, nearly worn away by time. These symbols, he knows from the stories, are believed to offer protection against malevolent spirits or bring good fortune to those who recognize their meaning. He crouches to study them, tracing the delicate curves with his finger, and feels a connection to generations who had passed this way long before him. The city's past, he realizes, is not only recorded in manuscripts and ledgers, but also in subtle, enduring signs scattered throughout its streets and courtyards. In the distance, he hears the soft toll of a bell, signaling an hour that seems to belong more to the spirit world than to the living. Following the sound, Thomas arrives at a small chapel long abandoned by parishioners, its windows darkened by grime and its door slightly ajar. Inside, dust motes dance in the slanting moonlight, revealing faded murals of saints, mythical beasts, and scenes from long-forgotten stories. He runs his fingers over the worn stone pews and notices the faint outline of inscriptions on the walls, possibly prayers, warnings, or messages left by those who sought guidance or protection. Every detail seems to whisper a fragment of the city's hidden narrative, waiting for a careful observer to assemble them into meaning. Suddenly, Thomas notices movement at the corner of the chapel. A figure draped in a hooded cloak, barely distinguishable from the shadows. The figure pauses, as if aware of Thomas's presence, then slowly steps forward, revealing a small lantern in one hand and an intricate object in the other. Thomas feels a surge of curiosity and trepidation. The figure speaks softly, recounting tales of spectral sightings, inexplicable sounds, and legends of objects imbued with power. Some are said to guide travelers safely, others to test their courage or resolve. Thomas listens intently, aware that the city's unseen history is as vivid and intricate as its physical architecture. The figure departs silently, leaving Thomas with the object, a small, carved token bearing symbols that match those at the well. He examines it carefully, feeling the weight of centuries of belief, superstition, and hope. The city, he realizes, is layered with meaning, with each corner, building, and relic carrying stories that blend history, imagination, and memory. Thomas senses that life here is a continuous interplay of the ordinary and the extraordinary, where perception, knowledge, and courage determine one's understanding of reality. Night deepens, and Thomas's walk continues through twisting alleys and deserted squares. He notices subtle signs that hint at the presence of others, footprints that disappear suddenly, a faint shadow moving across a wall, whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Each encounter reinforces the idea that the city is alive not only through its inhabitants, but through its legends, myths, and unseen forces. Survival and understanding, he realizes, are dependent not merely on skill or strength, but on attention, intuition, and respect for the hidden layers that shape daily life. Even the ordinary sounds of the city, dripping water, rustling leaves, distant bells, take on new significance. Thomas begins to perceive patterns. The rhythm of nocturnal creatures, the flow of the river reflecting moonlight, the subtle shifts in wind that signal weather changes or approaching travelers. Every sound carries potential meaning, and every shadow could hide both opportunity and danger. The city has become a living puzzle, with mysteries woven into its streets, buildings, and folklore. Before returning home, Thomas pauses at a quiet square, reflecting on the lessons of the night. He understands that the medieval city is a complex, layered organism, where daily life, superstition, craftsmanship, and hidden forces intersect in ways that are often invisible to casual observers. Every alley, doorway, and relic carries potential insight, and the stories passed down through generations guide, warn, and inspire those willing to pay attention. Thomas feels both humbled and exhilarated, aware that his journey through the city has only just begun. As he finally steps through the threshold of his home, the weight of the night's discoveries settles over him. The city sleeps, yet its stories, secrets, and unseen currents remain alive, awaiting new observers to uncover, interpret, and continue the intricate dance of life that stretches across generations. Thomas knows that every walk, every observation, and every encounter adds another layer to his understanding, deepening his connection to a city that is as mysterious as it is vibrant, as perilous as it is wondrous. In the days that follow, Thomas cannot shake the sense that the city holds yet deeper secrets, hidden beneath the surface of daily life. Curiosity, now sharpened into purpose, drives him to seek out whispers of secret societies, clandestine meetings, and old rituals that few dare speak of openly. He learns from passing conversations and discreet hints that certain guilds and families maintain hidden traditions, ceremonies, codes, and networks of influence that operate quietly alongside the visible structures of commerce, worship, and governance. One evening, Thomas notices unusual lanterns flickering through the fog near a seemingly abandoned warehouse at the edge of the city. His instincts, honed by careful observation, tell him this is not ordinary activity. Approaching cautiously, he sees robed figures moving with deliberate, synchronized steps, carrying symbols that he vaguely recognizes from old manuscripts and the markings at the well. Their movements are precise, almost ritualistic, suggesting knowledge passed down through generations. Thomas feels a thrill of apprehension and fascination, realizing that he is witnessing something profoundly hidden from public view. As he watches, Thomas recalls the stories he has heard of secret societies that preserve ancient wisdom guard sacred objects, or influence the city from the shadows. Some are said to guide artisans, protect merchants, or mediate disputes through subtle intervention. Others, he has been warned, test the moral and ethical boundaries of those they encounter, revealing character through observation, choice, and discretion. The figures before him, while mysterious, seem to embody this blend of secrecy, discipline, and purpose. Thomas's attention is drawn to an intricate symbol displayed on a banner carried by one of the robed figures. It matches patterns he has seen in hidden corners of the city, etched into door frames, carved into stones, and present on the token he received from the elderly man near the chapel. The repetition of this symbol across locations and contexts hints at a network that is both extensive and enduring, linking history, space, and human activity into a web of influence Thomas is only beginning to understand. Later that night, he visits a local scribe known for preserving the city's obscure histories. The scribe, wary at first, eventually shares fragments of knowledge. Tales of gatherings where knowledge is exchanged in code, objects imbued with significance, and rituals designed to teach lessons about vigilance, honor, and prudence. Each story, while shrouded in ambiguity, reinforces Thomas's understanding that the city is alive not only through commerce and labor, but through an invisible thread of cultural, spiritual, and intellectual exchange that sustains its deepest mysteries. Thomas becomes increasingly aware of the delicate balance maintained by these hidden networks. The rituals, symbols, and gatherings operate in parallel to the public life of the city, yet influence decisions, commerce, and social hierarchies in subtle, pervasive ways. Observing them teaches lessons in patience, attention, and discernment. Timing, observation, and understanding human behavior are as critical in these hidden contexts as they are in the bustling market or the quiet workshops of artisans. One morning, he follows subtle clues to a secluded courtyard, where a small group of initiates practices intricate hand gestures, chants, and movements. Each action, he learns, is intended to cultivate awareness, discipline, and harmony with the city's rhythms. Mistakes are quietly corrected, and subtle gestures indicate approval or caution. Thomas notices how observation itself is a form of participation. Understanding requires careful attention to detail, timing, and context. The courtyard, though small and unassuming, seems imbued with centuries of accumulated knowledge, rituals, and human experience. The rituals also reflect the city's historical memory. Symbols, chants, and gestures trace back to significant events. Floods, fires, the arrival of notable figures, and even long-forgotten disputes that shaped guilds and families. Each performance, while seemingly abstract, carries layers of meaning, connecting the past to the present. Thomas begins to appreciate how cultural memory is preserved not only in documents but through living practice, through gestures, stories, and the careful transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. Later, Thomas encounters an old storyteller near the city gates, sharing tales of legendary figures whose deeds shaped neighborhoods, guilds, and even hidden societies. Some are heroes, others tricksters, or morally ambiguous figures. Each tale is rich with detail, revealing insights into human behavior, ethics, and survival. Thomas realizes that understanding the city fully requires weaving together observation, narrative, and direct experience, learning not just from what is visible, but from what is whispered, implied, and performed in secret. As night falls, Thomas reflects on his expanding knowledge. The city, familiar in its markets, streets, and workshops, is also a labyrinth of hidden currents. Secret gatherings, rituals, symbols, and networks that influence life in ways invisible to most residents. By observing, questioning, and participating with care, he begins to understand the intricate interplay between the public and private, the ordinary and the mystical. Each step, glance, and conversation adds depth to his understanding, revealing the medieval city as a living, breathing organism, full of mystery, history, and untold stories. The night deepens, and Thomas finally returns home, carrying a sense of awe and vigilance. He knows that the city's surface life, commerce, labor, and festivity is intertwined with hidden rituals, secret networks, and centuries of accumulated wisdom. The lessons of discretion, attention, and understanding are as vital as any craft or skill he has learned. Thomas feels a growing connection to the city, recognizing that to live fully within it, one must navigate both the visible streets and the invisible currents that pulse beneath them. As the nights grow longer, Thomas begins to hear whispers of creatures that supposedly roam the city after dark. At first, he dismisses them as fanciful stories told by children or nervous merchants, but the more he observes, the more he notices subtle, inexplicable occurrences. Flickering shadows that seem to move independently, fleeting shapes disappearing into narrow alleys, and strange sounds that cannot be traced to any human source. Each night, the city feels more alive, mysterious, and layered with unseen activity that challenges his understanding of reality. One evening, as a pale moon casts silver light over the cobblestones, Thomas ventures into the abandoned quarter of the city. Here, buildings lean precariously, their timber frames cracked and warped with age, windows shattered or boarded over. The air is thick with the scent of damp wood and lingering smoke, and the streets are unnervingly silent, except for occasional distant echoes. He senses movement from the corners of his eyes, something fleeting, almost ephemeral, but when he turns, there is nothing. Yet the presence feels deliberate, as though the city itself is testing his attention, his patience, and his courage. The tales he has heard speak of shadowy figures, some human, some not, who appear to guard forgotten relics, wander abandoned passages, or play tricks on those who venture too far unprepared. Some are said to be spirits of former residents, lingering in places of unfinished business or unresolved grief. Others are creatures of legend, nocturnal animals with unusual intelligence, shapeshifters capable of imitating human form, or guardians of hidden treasures. Thomas cannot tell what is real, but he knows that observation, intuition, and caution are his only reliable guides. In a narrow alley lined with moss-covered stone, Thomas encounters a faint light glimmering through a crack in a wall. Approaching carefully, he discovers a small room filled with strange artifacts. An intricately carved mirror reflecting a scene that seems just out of reach, small figurines of unknown creatures, and manuscripts written in scripts that twist and curl unnaturally. Each object exudes an aura of significance, and Thomas senses that they are part of the city's hidden narrative, fragments of stories meant to be discovered only by those attuned to the rhythms of the unseen world. As he examines the items, a low, melodic hum fills the room. It is neither wind nor water nor human voice, yet it resonates within him, stirring a mixture of curiosity and unease. The hum seems to respond to his movements, growing louder as he approaches certain objects and fading when he steps back. Thomas begins to realize that the city's mysteries are interactive. The streets, buildings, and objects respond to attention, observation, and intent. Knowledge here is not merely recorded. It is alive, demanding engagement and careful interpretation. Venturing further into the night, Thomas notices signs of nocturnal life in abandoned spaces. Small footprints leading to hidden alcoves, faint scratches on wooden beams, and objects displaced as if by unseen hands. Each discovery reinforces the idea that the city is inhabited by more than its residents. It is a living tapestry of legend, memory, and subtle forces that operate independently of human schedules. Some of these forces are playful, others cautionary, and a few carry the weight of ancient warnings. Thomas learns to approach each encounter with respect, patience, and careful attention to detail. During his explorations, Thomas hears stories from cautious neighbors who have glimpsed strange figures or experienced inexplicable events. They speak of shadows that follow travelers without crossing their path, lights that vanish when approached, and distant sounds that echo memories of past lives. Though some tales are embellished or fantastical, patterns emerge, suggesting that these experiences are not purely imagined. They are reminders that the city's unseen dimensions are as intricate and structured as its visible streets, markets, and workshops. The city's legends also include warnings about overconfidence. Those who venture too boldly into forgotten quarters risk becoming lost, confused, or trapped by the very mysteries they seek to understand. Thomas observes that the city itself seems to reward humility, careful observation, and respect for hidden knowledge, while punishing recklessness. Survival, insight, and mastery here are intertwined with discipline and awareness, reinforcing lessons that extend far beyond mere physical skill. As the night deepens, Thomas pauses in a quiet square where the mist curls around statues and lampposts. The familiar landmarks now seem transformed, imbued with significance he had never noticed before. Shadows stretch like tendrils, faint sounds carry distant memories, and the city seems to hum with quiet life. In this moment, Thomas understands that the medieval city is not merely a place of commerce, labor, and human interaction. It is a layered world where legend, history, and perception merge, where every corner may conceal both wonder and danger, and where the unseen is as vital as the seen. By the time he returns home, Thomas feels the weight of what he has discovered. The city's nocturnal life, the hidden creatures, and the interactive legends have expanded his understanding of the world. He knows that to navigate this city fully, he must continue to observe, question, and engage with both visible and invisible layers of life. Each step, each shadow, and each whisper carries meaning, teaching him that awareness, patience, and respect are essential to surviving and thriving. In a city alive with mystery, history, and unseen wonders. Several nights later, Thomas feels a restless pull toward a part of the city he has long avoided, the ruins of the old cathedral. Its spires, once towering symbols of faith and civic pride, now lean precariously, fractured by age, storm, and neglect. The walls are scarred with centuries of soot, moss, and graffiti, some carved by passers-by, others left mysteriously without explanation. Legends say the cathedral was once the site of sacred rituals, secret gatherings, and arcane ceremonies, practices that were gradually hidden as the city modernized. Yet traces remain, embedded in the architecture and lingering in the atmosphere. Thomas steps carefully across the cracked stones of the outer courtyard. The wind whistles through broken arches, producing a faint, haunting melody that seems almost deliberate. Shadows of the ruined spires stretch across the square, appearing to reach for him as if alive. He recalls stories of apprentices, priests, and mysterious figures who performed rites here to protect the city, guard hidden knowledge, or communicate with forces beyond ordinary understanding. Every stone and fragment of glass seems to whisper fragments of these rituals, inviting observation but warning of respect. As he ventures inside, the cathedral's interior reveals astonishing details. Faded murals, now barely discernible, depict celestial scenes, allegories of virtue and vice, and abstract symbols whose meanings have been lost over time. The air is heavy, scented with dust, mildew, and faint traces of incense long burned. Thomas notices the way the moonlight filters through broken windows, illuminating certain carvings and inscriptions at precise angles. These patterns, he realizes, are likely intentional, part of the cathedral's design to convey meaning during ritual or to guide practitioners along a hidden path. At the center of the nave, Thomas discovers a circle of stones arranged in a deliberate pattern, surrounded by faint markings that match symbols he has seen elsewhere in the city. At the well, the chapel, and during the nocturnal gatherings, he crouches to examine the stones, noting subtle variations in shape, color, and texture. Some stones bear scratches and etchings that suggest practical use, foot placements, handholds, or measurement, while others appear purely symbolic, intended to convey abstract meaning to those attuned to the city's secret language. Suddenly, a flicker of movement catches his eye. A figure cloaked in dark fabric emerges from a shadowed archway, carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. The figure moves deliberately, performing a series of precise gestures that echo the stories Thomas has heard of secret ceremonies and guardian rites. Though he is hesitant, Thomas watches closely, understanding that observation itself is a form of participation, and that careful attention may reveal insights about both the ritual and the city's hidden knowledge. The figure places the bundle on one of the stones and steps back, chanting softly in a language that feels older than the city itself. Thomas recognizes elements of the symbols he has seen in the streets and artifacts, arranged in a sequence that suggests a ritual of protection or communication. The air in the nave seems to thrum with energy, a vibration that resonates faintly through the floor and walls. Thomas realizes that these rituals are not merely symbolic. They shape perception, attention, and perhaps even influence events within the city, visible and invisible alike. As the chanting continues, Thomas observes the interplay between light, shadow, and movement. The moonlight strikes the bundle at just the right angle, revealing intricate patterns that are otherwise invisible. The figure moves with precision, occasionally adjusting stones or symbols to align with the angles of light. Each action is deliberate, balancing aesthetic, symbolic, and practical concerns. A dance refined over generations of practitioners who understood the city's hidden language. Thomas notices that the ritual is not solitary. The figure seems to interact with unseen participants, responding to cues that Thomas cannot perceive. Whispers echo faintly, and the figure's movements suggest dialogue with presences beyond human sight. He senses that the city itself, or at least the accumulated memory of its inhabitants, participates in these ceremonies. Knowledge, skill, and attention converge, creating an intricate web of meaning and interaction that Thomas is only beginning to comprehend. The night deepens, and the figure completes the ritual, leaving the bundle and retreating silently into the shadows. Thomas approaches the stones carefully, feeling the residual energy in the space. He examines the markings, the patterns of light, and the placement of the bundle, realizing that this is a record of both intention and history, preserved through action rather than text alone. The city, he understands, contains layers of meaning that require engagement, interpretation, and patience to fully uncover. As he leaves the cathedral ruins, Thomas reflects on the lessons of the night. The rituals, symbols, and ceremonies are more than curiosities. They are conduits of knowledge, guardianship, and cultural memory. Observing them has taught him patience, respect, and the necessity of attention to subtle detail. The city, layered with history and hidden currents, offers both challenge and insight to those willing to notice and learn. Thomas feels a deepening connection to the city, aware that his journey through its mysteries is only beginning, and that each new night may reveal secrets both wondrous and perilous. In the days following his encounter at the cathedral, Thomas becomes increasingly aware that the city itself is a puzzle, a network of hidden paths, symbols, and stories waiting to be deciphered. Every street, alley, and building seems to carry echoes of the past. And Thomas realizes that understanding the city fully requires not only observation but also interpretation and courage. He begins to carry a small notebook, sketching symbols, recording patterns of light, and noting unusual sounds and movements. This act of documentation transforms his walks into investigations, each discovery a clue leading to the next. One afternoon, Thomas overhears a conversation between two elder merchants in the marketplace. They speak cautiously about an old map said to reveal secret passages beneath the city, tunnels that once connected guild halls, hidden chambers, and forgotten quarters. According to legend, only those with keen perception and knowledge of the city's symbols could follow the map safely. The wrong steps, or the misreading of a symbol, could lead one into dangerous or impassable areas. The idea both excites and unsettles Thomas, igniting a curiosity that borders on obsession. That evening, Thomas follows a series of subtle clues he has gathered over weeks. Marks etched into stone doorframes, alignment of window panes with moonlight, and faint scratches on walls that indicate previous travelers. Each step requires careful observation, patience, and a sense of pattern recognition that he has been developing through months of exploration. The city's hidden architecture begins to reveal itself. Staircases leading to small rooms behind walls, narrow passageways that connect seemingly unrelated streets, and thresholds that respond differently depending on time, light, and attention. In a forgotten courtyard, Thomas discovers the first tangible part of the secret network, a set of engraved stones forming a partial map. The symbols are cryptic yet familiar, echoing those he has seen at the cathedral, the well, and during nocturnal gatherings. He traces the engravings carefully, realizing that they provide not only directions but also warnings, indicating fragile structures, potential hazards, and points of significance. This map, he understands, is both practical and symbolic, teaching lessons in attention, foresight, and caution. As night falls, Thomas follows the map through a series of twisting alleys. The city seems to respond to his movements. Shadows shift, winds whisper through narrow passages, and distant sounds echo in ways that suggest guidance or warning. At one point, a faint light glimmers from a crack in a wall. Upon investigation, Thomas discovers a small chamber containing objects of great age. Coins, manuscripts, and ceremonial items carefully arranged as though awaiting discovery. Each artifact tells a story, linking the present to centuries of hidden activity, guardianship, and knowledge. The journey is not without danger. Certain paths are unstable, with loose stones and collapsing beams. Unexpected obstacles test his patience, careful observation, and balance. Thomas begins to realize that the city's hidden network is designed as much to teach skill and resilience as to conceal treasure or knowledge. Every misstep carries consequence, reinforcing the idea that attention, patience, and respect for the city's structure are essential. As he navigates deeper into the network, Thomas encounters inscriptions that seem to challenge him directly. Riddles, codes, and sequences requiring both logic and intuition. Solving them demands recalling patterns he has observed in murals, symbols, and rituals. Each solution unlocks another step, another corridor, and another fragment of the city's hidden history. The process is slow, methodical, and immersive, blending perception, reasoning, and courage. In one narrow chamber, he discovers evidence of the city's historical guardians. Markings indicating meetings, objects arranged according to specific sequences, and faint traces of ritual activity. It becomes clear that these hidden pathways were maintained with care, used to safeguard knowledge, objects, and traditions that were considered vital to the city's well-being. Thomas senses the weight of responsibility in his discovery. He is now part of a lineage of observers and guardians, learning to navigate the space with care, skill, and reverence. Hours pass as Thomas continues his exploration. Each corridor and chamber teaches him more about the interplay between architecture, symbolism, and human intention. He recognizes that the city's design is not random. Every turn, every marking, every artifact is part of a coherent system that rewards observation, intellect, and patience. By night's end, he emerges back into the familiar streets, carrying both knowledge and a sense of connection to the city that is deeper than he had ever imagined. Thomas realizes that the medieval city is a living organism, simultaneously mundane and extraordinary, with layers of history, mystery, and purpose that interlace the visible and invisible worlds. Every step taken in hidden corridors, every symbol interpreted, every ritual observed, reinforces the idea that life here requires more than labor or commerce. It demands observation, awareness, and an understanding of the unseen forces that shape every action, every path, and every story. As Thomas continues his exploration of the hidden pathways, he begins to realize that the city is not merely a puzzle of symbols and corridors. It can also be dangerous. One evening, guided by the faint traces of a map he discovered earlier, he ventures into an underground passage said to connect several long-abandoned quarters of the city. The air is damp and musty, carrying the scent of soil, stone, and decay. Each step echoes ominously against the walls, and the flickering light of his lantern casts dancing shadows that make familiar shapes seem sinister and alive. Soon, Thomas encounters his first real challenge. A narrow corridor splits into multiple passages, each marked with cryptic symbols etched into the walls. Some symbols he recognizes from his previous observations. Others are new, strange, and foreboding. He pauses, recalling the guidance of the old scribe and the cloaked figure at the cathedral. The city tests those who seek its secrets, and missteps can lead to injury, confusion, or worse. He studies the markings carefully, tracing their patterns and cross-referencing them with his notes, weighing intuition against reason. Choosing a path, Thomas proceeds cautiously. The floor beneath him creaks ominously, loose stones threatening to shift underfoot. A faint draft carries sounds of distant dripping water, whispering through cracks and passageways. At times, it seems almost as if the passage itself is alive, reacting to his presence. Shadows stretch along the walls in unnatural ways, and Thomas feels a subtle but growing sense of unease. He realizes that navigating the hidden city requires not only intellect but also nerves, patience, and respect for the unknown forces at play. Deeper into the tunnels, he finds evidence of past explorers who had attempted the same journey. Fragments of rope, tattered clothing, and markings on the walls hint at previous failures, or warnings left by cautious predecessors. Some symbols indicate safe footing or areas where the passage has been reinforced. Others suggest danger, collapsed chambers, or hidden pitfalls. Thomas moves slowly, using both his lantern and careful observation to follow the safest route, aware that one wrong step could have serious consequences. A sudden shift in the floor startles him, a loose stone giving way beneath his weight. Thomas catches himself, heart pounding, and takes a moment to steady his breathing. The city, he realizes, is a constant teacher, blending lessons in attention, balance, and awareness with its mysteries. Every sensation, the echo of footsteps, the damp smell of stone, the subtle shift of air currents, provides clues if one is willing to observe. He adjusts his approach, moving more deliberately, feeling a connection to both the city's physical architecture and its hidden logic. As he reaches a larger chamber, the lantern reveals walls covered with intricate murals, depicting scenes of long-forgotten events. Merchants negotiating with distant travelers, mysterious figures performing rituals, and creatures from local legend wandering among the city streets. These images, though faded, seem to vibrate with significance. Thomas notices that certain symbols recur, echoing the hidden markers he has encountered elsewhere. He realizes that the murals serve both as decoration and instruction, guiding observers who are attentive enough to interpret them. Suddenly, a low sound, a scraping, almost like claws against stone, echoes from a shadowed corner. Thomas freezes, listening carefully. The sound is deliberate and repeated, yet he can see nothing. His mind races, recalling tales of nocturnal creatures, spirits, and guardians that inhabit the hidden parts of the city. The air grows colder, the shadows denser, and a sense of being watched prickles his skin. He understands that the city tests not only skill and intellect, but also courage, perception, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. He decides to move cautiously toward the source of the sound, aware that any sudden movement could provoke an unknown reaction. The scraping continues intermittently, growing closer and then retreating, as though the presence is aware of his approach and testing his resolve. Thomas observes the floor, walls, and faint light patterns, seeking any clue that could indicate what lies ahead. The chamber is alive with history, danger, and hidden meaning, each element simultaneously threatening and instructive. Hours seem to pass as Thomas navigates the chamber, piecing together patterns and clues. The scraping fades eventually, leaving only the echo of his own breathing and footsteps. He realizes that the encounter, whether physical or spectral, has sharpened his senses, honed his awareness, and reinforced the lessons of patience, observation, and humility. The city has once again demonstrated that its hidden paths are both a challenge and an education, blending danger with insight in a way that shapes those who explore its depths. By the time Thomas emerges back into the familiar streets above, he feels a profound mixture of relief and accomplishment. The city's hidden corridors, symbols, and unseen inhabitants have tested him, and he has survived, not merely through courage, but through careful observation, attention to detail, and respect for the unknown. The medieval city, he understands more than ever, is a living, breathing organism, full of mystery, lessons, and layers of history that reveal themselves only to those willing to look beyond the obvious. In the nights that follow, Thomas becomes increasingly attuned to the city's hidden rhythm. The streets, buildings, and even the air seem to hum with the weight of centuries, carrying echoes of lives long past. One evening, as fog curls around the lampposts and drifts along the cobblestones, he ventures toward a secluded plaza rumored to be the heart of the city's ancient legends. According to whispers he has pieced together from merchants, old scribes, and nocturnal wanderers, this plaza was once the site of remarkable events. Apparitions, unexplained phenomena, and manifestations of the city's collective memory. As he steps into the plaza, Thomas immediately senses a shift. The mist thickens, curling around the base of statues and fountains, obscuring familiar shapes and creating unfamiliar forms. Shadows stretch unnaturally, as if the plaza itself were alive and observing. Thomas notices faint flickers of movement at the edge of his vision, forms that vanish when he turns to face them, leaving only an echo of their presence. He recalls stories of spirits who replayed moments from the past, sometimes guiding those who were attentive, sometimes merely testing their courage. Drawn to an ancient fountain at the center, he examines the carvings etched into its base. Figures of humans, animals, and fantastical creatures are intertwined in scenes that seem to shift under the changing light. Thomas realizes that these images are not static. They appear to animate subtly, revealing narratives when observed carefully. A figure that seemed frozen a moment ago now appears to bow. Another reaches toward an unseen object, and the fountain's waters shimmer as though reflecting memories rather than the moonlight. A sudden chill brushes Thomas's neck, and he hears a whisper so soft it might have been imagined. Yet the words carry clarity. Fragments of conversation, warnings, and guidance from voices long silent. He understands that the city's legends are not mere stories. They are embedded in space, objects, and even the elements themselves, waiting for those attuned to perceive them. The boundary between history, myth, and the present blurs, creating a living tableau of the city's hidden consciousness. Thomas continues to explore, noticing how ordinary features, benches, archways, and cobblestones, seem to interact with him. Footsteps echo in patterns that mimic movements from centuries ago. A shadow drifts across a wall, replaying the gestures of someone who once walked this path. The plaza feels like a stage where time layers itself, and those who walk through it must learn to navigate multiple temporal realities simultaneously. Each step teaches observation, patience, and the capacity to integrate history into understanding the present. Suddenly, Thomas spots a faint, shimmering figure near a collapsed archway. His form is humanoid but indistinct, edges flickering like smoke. The figure gestures, leading him toward a hidden passage partially concealed by overgrown ivy and broken masonry. Heart racing, Thomas follows cautiously, aware that this could be another manifestation of the city's layered reality, or a trap of his own imagination. As he steps through the passage, he notices subtle carvings on the walls that match symbols he has seen at the cathedral, the well, and in hidden chambers. Recognition sparks understanding. These are markers guiding him deeper into the city's secretive core. The passage opens into a chamber illuminated by faint phosphorescent moss, casting eerie green light on walls covered with murals depicting legendary events. Battles, festivals, mysterious gatherings, and apparitions of past citizens. Figures in the murals seem to react to his presence, their eyes following him as he moves, gestures subtly shifting. Thomas feels a mixture of awe and trepidation. The city is no longer just a physical place, but a living record of memory, myth, and perception. He notices that some murals depict creatures and figures from stories he has been told but never seen, guardians of hidden knowledge, tricksters, and benevolent spirits. Each depiction carries clues, warnings, or lessons. Thomas traces the images with his fingers, piecing together narratives and understanding that these legends were embedded deliberately to teach, guide, and sometimes test those who explore the hidden layers of the city. Hours pass in the chamber as he studies the murals, interpreting symbols and recording observations in his notebook. He realizes that the city's legends are interactive, existing not merely as tales, but as living frameworks shaping behavior, understanding, and perception. Even phenomena that seem supernatural are deeply integrated into the city's design, blending art, memory, and experience to create a coherent, albeit enigmatic, system. Finally, Thomas exits the chamber into a quiet corridor where the mist has begun to thin. His mind is alight with revelations. The city is a multi-layered organism where history, myth, and the present converge. The creatures, shadows, and whispers are not simply stories. They are living echoes, guiding and testing those who pay attention. Thomas feels the weight of the city's lessons and the thrill of discovery, aware that each new night will deepen his understanding, revealing further mysteries hidden in plain sight.